In this movie, I'll show you how to expand a selection outline by a specific number of pixels, and then we'll fill that selection with gray and apply a bevel and emboss effect to create the effect of real lead. All right, so I'm going to start by zooming way in here so that we can see our existing selection outlines. Notice that they're pretty much exactly as wide as those black outlines. So what we want to do is just make them ever so slightly thicker, and you can do that by going up to the Select menu and not choosing Grow, even though you would think that that's the way to work. But you may recall from the previous chapter, Grow is actually going to expand the selection according to the magic wand tolerance value. Instead, what we want is to choose Modify and then Expand. So Expand is going to make the selection outline larger by a specific number of pixels. Contract is going to make it smaller by a certain number of pixels. So if I were to choose a Contract command, for example, and notice that one of the downsides of this command is it has no preview. But let's say I decided to contract the selection by just a single pixel and then click OK, you can see that my selection outlines become thinner than they were before, which of course is the opposite of what I'm looking for. So I'll just go ahead and press Ctrl-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that effect. Then I'll return to the Select menu, choose Modify, and choose Expand. And I will once again enter a value of just 1 pixel. Incidentally, you don't need to worry about this checkbox because we're nowhere near the boundaries of the canvas. And then click OK, and notice now the selection outlines have grown to cover up all of the black. So we won't be having that problem we did at the end of the previous movie. All right, now I want you to go up to the Layer menu, choose New Fill Layer, and choose Solid Color. We'll go ahead and once again call this layer Lead, click OK. Make sure the hue and saturation values are 0, and then take the brightness value up to 50% and click OK. And notice we have now completely covered up the black in the background. All right, now we need to add some shading in the form of an effect known as Bevel and Emboss. And you get to it by dropping down to the FX icon at the bottom of the Layers panel, and then choose Bevel Emboss. And the default settings are pretty much what we're looking for, but let me walk you through these really quick. Style should be set to inner bevel so that we're seeing the shading on the inside. Technique is smooth. A depth of 100% is just fine. Direction should be up. The size value may be a little different than the default. I've set it to 5 pixels. We want soften set to 0. Angle and altitude should be 135 and 30 respectively. We're not worried about the gloss contour. The highlight mode should be screen. The shadow mode should be multiply. After all, screen is the bright mode and multiply is the dark mode. I have the colors set to white and black respectively, and both opacity values are 75%, in which case you will get the effect you're seeing on screen as soon as you click OK in order to accept that effect. All right, now I'll go ahead and zoom out by pressing Ctrl-0 or Command-0 on a Mac, and I will turn off that layer of white in order to expose that cheerful background. All right, now, believe it or not, there's just a couple of changes left here. I'm going to turn off the effect layer for a moment so that you can see the original bird in the background. Go ahead and click on that bird. Now, he should be translucent so that we can see the clouds, for example, in back of him. But if I were to just press the 5 key to reduce the opacity to 50%, as you can see in the upper right corner of the Layers panel, we would be able to see through to him, but it's not the right effect. It just ends up making the hummingbird look kind of dingy. So I'll go ahead and take that value back up to 100% by pressing the 0 key. What we want to do is darken the background as if we're seeing through glass, and you can achieve that effect using the preeminent darkening mode inside Photoshop, which is Multiply. And that will produce this effect right here. All right, now we want to integrate the colors from that effect layer. So just go ahead and turn that effect layer on, then click on it to make it active, and then select the foremost contrast mode, which is Overlay, in order to produce this very colorful effect here. And then the last thing I did was I turned on this string group that contains 3 layers of string that I created in advance. And now, as you can see, I have a different effect than I showed you at the outset, and you're going to have a different effect too, because every time you apply stained glass inside Photoshop, you get a random result. But with any luck, it looks every bit as good as mine. All right, now I'm going to press Shift-F in order to switch to the full screen mode, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit as well. And maybe scroll up so that we can see the top of the bird's wing. And that's how you turn a fakey stained glass effect into something more closely resembling the real thing using a combination of selection techniques that revolve around the quick mask mode.